In this presentation, we will have a look at different types of work visas in Singapore. So I am going to explain all the visas, all the main types of work visas and their relative numbers and the restrictions or specific requirements if any. In Singapore, the term work visa is broadly used for any kind of work permit. So people might sometimes use terms like work permit, work pass, EP pass, EP, S pass and so on. Some of these are actually subtypes of work visas, and work visas typically is the broader term. Before we start the actual presentation, let's first have a look at the total population of Singapore as of June 2019. This has a relevance with this work type, so I am going to quickly explain you this overview. So the total population, as you see, is 5.70 million, and out of which Singapore citizens and PR together are 4.03 million. 1.68 million people are non-resident or what we call foreigners, so which is shown in this green pie color. As you can see, almost 30% of the population of Singapore is foreigners, and they are on some type of work visa or the dependent pass in Singapore. One key point to remember is this PR, Singapore PRs are also people who were at one point of time non-resident and possibly they were on employment pass and later on they converted to permanent residency. Some of these permanent residents will eventually convert it to Singapore citizenship. So let's start with the main topic of this presentation, and that is about the overview of Singapore work permits. So at the lowest level of work permits, the first visa type comes, which is called as work permit, which has total number of people as of 2019 around 688,000. So this represents to this 41% what you see in non-resident population. And who are these work permit holders? So they are the people who normally work in construction industry, various factories, landscape, maintenance of roads and railway construction, HDB construction. So a major part of them is actually in the construction industry, but other industries also they are quite active. Typically they are low skilled workers or what we call is as a physical labor and not the office or the mental work. They make significant contribution to the Singapore economy, and as you can see their number is also very high. The other type of visa which is at the same level is called as foreign domestic workers. And who are the foreign domestic workers? They are typically the maids who works in various Singapore households. They carry activities like elder care, care of children, taking care of the household when owners or the residents of that house are working or going to the schools. These maids will stay in the house of the employer only, and in many cases they have a very small room dedicated for them. Now for both these work permits, the countries from which these work permit holders can come, whether work permit holder or foreign domestic worker, that list of countries is already approved by the government, and you cannot bring somebody from some other country other than the approved list. One more point to note is foreign domestic workers can be only women and men are not allowed in this role. The next visa, which is slightly higher than work permit and foreign domestic workers, is S pass holders. S pass holders bridge the gap between work permit and employment pass. These people are typically semi-skilled. They may have educational qualification like a diploma or a higher certificate in some specific discipline. They work in various industries at different roles of semi-skilled labor. Chefs, AutoCAD operators, low-level computer programmers can be seen having this S pass visa. Similarly, if you go to any retail shop in Singapore, most of the time the staff that greets and meets you is from S pass category. The next higher visa is employment pass, entry pass or personalized employment pass, which has a total number of approximately 184,000 in total. In this category, the percentage of entry pass and PEP is actually very small. So majority of this number comes from employment pass holders only. They are the skilled people, and they normally tend to have graduate or higher graduate or professional qualification, and they will typically work in banks, finance companies, information technology companies, various offices, in marketing roles, in vice president, president roles. So anybody who is at a higher level will normally come on employment pass. If you take a stroll in Singapore CBD, you will see people, whoever are the foreign workers in that, they will typically be on employment pass. Above them comes the category of Singapore citizens and PR, which is collectively 4.03 million residents. These people do not have to get any work permit. That's why I have shown this cell in green color. They can work in any company so long as they get the job, and they can even start their own business. The next visa type, which I am showing it on the right hand side, is called Dependent Pass or LTVP. LTVP stands for Long Term Visit Pass, and their number is 285,000. These are the people who are normally dependent on employment pass, entry pass or PEP holder, and if they are dependent on Singapore citizen or PR, instead of dependent pass they will get LTVP. This pass is reserved for the spouse and the kids of the Singapore citizen PR or the employment pass holder. In addition to this, there are two types of work permits, which is work permit for confinement nannies and work permit for performing artists. However, their number is very small, therefore I have not taken that into this main visas overview. Moving on to the next slide. For these S pass and work permit holders, which I have highlighted in light blue color, quotas are applicable. So the quota for S pass is 13% of S pass can be employed in service sector of the total manpower and 20% in other sectors. So what does exactly this means? So if you want to employ an S pass holder and if you are in other sectors, then you need to have at least 4 people on your payroll who are Singapore permanent resident or Singapore citizen before you can employ this S pass holder. Only when you have 4 employees, 4 local employees, and then you employ S pass holder, the condition of this 20% quota will get fulfilled. If you apply without having enough number of Singapore permanent resident or citizens, then the S pass will get rejected. Same way, for work permit holders, the quota is 38% in service sector and more in other sectors. So industry by industry it will change. There is no quota for employment pass, entry pass or PEP holders, though there is a minimum salary requirement for getting employment pass. Moving on to the next slide, S pass holders, work permit holders and foreign domestic workers are subject to levies. What that means is, in addition to the salary that you pay to the employees in these categories, you need to pay additional 250 Singapore dollars to 650 Singapore dollars per employee per month to the government. This is called as levy, and this levy amount depends upon how much percentage of quota you are using. So if you are using a lower quota, for example the quota allowed is 38%, and you are using only 20% of the quota, then the levy will be less, whereas if you are using full, then the levy will be high. Of course, this quota calculation does not come into picture when it is a question of foreign domestic workers, that is the maids, because normally every household will employ only one maid. And the last point that I want to highlight here is about the dependent pass criteria. As I have explained, employment pass holders, entry pass holders, PEP holders and S pass holders can bring in their dependents in Singapore on a dependent pass. However, for the dependent pass to be approved, they need to get a minimum salary of 6,000 Singapore dollars per month. This condition is not applicable to LTVP, application of long-term visit pass, who are spouses or dependents of Singapore citizen or PR. One more point to highlight, in case an employment pass holder wishes to bring his mother or father on long-term social visit pass, then they can easily apply. So provided they have a salary exceeding 12,000 Singapore dollars per month. And the last point on this slide is applying for permanent residency. So out of all these visas, only employment pass holders and S pass holders are allowed to file for permanent residency in Singapore. Work permit holders, foreign domestic workers are not allowed. When employment pass holder applies for permanent residency, he can also include his dependent pass holders in the application. This was the overview of Singapore work permits. I hope it is clear to you now. I will be also making a detailed presentation on each of the visa types, so don't forget to check that out.
Thank you for watching this video. This video was brought to you by Epica Consulting Singapore. Subscribe to our channel today to get notified when new videos are posted.